So this is building an InfoPath and SharePoint solution to track team operations part 2. Was anybody not in part 1? A couple of you? Okay, so in part 1, we talked a little bit about managers and what managers do. We showed some pictures that were a lot of fun about different managers. We had a stressed guy. We had Superman with a SharePoint mark on him, you know, because he used SharePoint, so he was a perfect manager. We had a guy picking his nose because he was off in his own little world doing his own thing as a manager. We talked a little bit about that, and then about what managers actually do, how they have to build relationships with people, they have to take responsibility, they have to do research, they have to make recommendations, they have to be responsive, things like that. So we talked about that. And then we built an InfoPath forum and a SharePoint site with a dashboard that was very simple dashboard, all using out-of-the-box tools to help with those particular things that managers do. In this session, we're going to actually take that and upgrade it to 2013. And then we're going to also look at some other things that you can do with it once you get it to 2013 and some tweaks you may have to make. How many in here are IT pros? What you would call IT pros, more on the admin side? How many are developers? A couple of devs. What about power users, information workers? A couple of those, okay? So the first part of this is really going to be a lot of IT pro background. But you need to know what to look for. And so I'm going to try to tell you, okay, this is the process we're taking. At this point, these are some risks that happen, okay? So that you can understand that. And if you're an IT pro, you're going to understand all that anyway. Or it'll be good for you to know. A little bit about me. I'm Lori Gowin. I'm a Premier Field Engineer with Microsoft. I've been there about a year. I've been doing SharePoint since 2003, roughly. And I'm the chairman of the Birmingham SharePoint user group. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. That's pronounced completely different than here where it's Birmingham. But we actually do call it the Ham, so that's the way you pronounce it there. That picture of me was taken my very first trip to London in December of 2010. And I don't know, some of you may remember this. It snowed like 5 inches in an hour on December 18th, 2010, which was my birthday. And they shut down Heathrow for like 3 days. And it was crazy. There was like people trying to leave, people sleeping in the airport on the floor for days because they wouldn't let any flights in and out. It was just chaos. That was my first trip to London. So welcome to London, thank you very much. Here's some snow, go sightsee in it. That's what I did. I was the crazy tourist out there, you know, sightseeing in it. And couldn't even open my eyes in that picture because he was like, open your eyes. I was like, I can't even see. It's snowing so hard. That's me. And this is my contact information. I will say if you do connect to me on LinkedIn, please put here is where you've met me or talked to me or seen me or something. Because if I get a lot of strangers that just say, hey, I want to connect with you. And if I can't remember where we met, talked, or something, I'm probably going to say, I don't know you, and delete it, okay? So if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, just please put that this is where we met or talked. All right, our agenda, you can see a lot of it is upgrade. So we're going to upgrade the site that we built in the last one with all the dashboard and everything in it. Then we will do some upgrade tweaks to the solution that you'll have to see. Hopefully we'll get to demo that. And then we will actually look at, if you created it in 2013, some new things that you can do, okay? All right, so upgrading. There is a 2-part session tomorrow on upgrade. So if you are an IT pro and you really want to talk about upgrade and deep dive into it and all the fun stuff with upgrade, that will be tomorrow. It's IT 112 and 113. It's from 9 to 10 and then 10:15 to 11:15, and it is Chan and Ari. Don't even ask me to pronounce Chan's full name or last name. I'm not going to try. So if you want more information, be sure and go to that session if you're an IT pro because it's going to be a really good session. All right, so before we can upgrade our site in 2010, we have to migrate our site to Claims. So the site that we built in 2010, we built in classic mode. Okay, so we did it all in classic. If you were in the last session, we had some data connections, we had some stuff like that. We had some tasks lists, some project lists, things like that. And now we need to take that site and we need to upgrade it to Claims. Now for me, what I actually did was I built a second web application backed up my database, detached it, attached the restored copy of it to the new site collection just so that I could keep the old one because I needed that for my demo, right? And then I did a migration on that web application for that web application to move from Classic to Claims. So, and you're going to have to do this if you're an IT pro on all of your stuff that's built in 2010 that is built using Claims. So you either migrate to built using Classic. You're going to need to migrate to Claims to upgrade no matter what you do. You can either upgrade it there or upgrade it later. It's easier to me to just go ahead and upgrade it in 2010 because it's just a few PowerShell commands. I don't know how well you can see that, but there is actually a TechNet article. It's pretty long on the different ways to migrate, and it actually already has all the PowerShell commands there for you. You can copy them to Notepad, fill in your particular pieces of information, paste them into PowerShell in your management shell, and it works. I had no errors. You can see this is an actual screenshot of what I did and everything. I took this yesterday. So this first set of 4 is basically you're getting the web app that you want to migrate to Claims. You're telling it you're going to set it from Classic to Claims, and then you're telling it to update. This second set, all the way to this update right here, is where you're telling it who the new manager of the site's going to be, because otherwise it won't recognize you as you're logged in as the account unless you have somebody that can manage it. It's setting the web application to, there's a bunch of different things in there. It's giving it full control. It's setting all of those policies and stuff for that particular account. Then this line right here where it says migrate users is actually doing the migration of the users from Classic authentication to Claims authentication, and it will go ahead and map that for you so that your users are then migrated over. And then provision globally, that is where it provisions the claims provider and all of that. Any questions about that? All right, so a couple of things that can happen when you do this particular piece. So when you do this particular piece in 2010, a couple of things that can happen is it can forget who your users are. Although you've done a migrate users, when you go into your tasks, and I actually had this happen on one of my tests. I did it like 5 different times. So in the tasks where the assigned to person was, it forgot who everybody was. So it was not assigned to anybody. So I had to go back in and make sure that it assigned to the right people, which was the new claims users. So that's something you need to be aware of. When your IT pro comes to you, if you're not the admin that's going to be doing the migration, you need to be aware that, hey, my site's being migrated to claims, and this is what I need to check for. Make sure all my users still have their tasks assigned to them. So that's just one little tip, because I've experienced it, that you may run into there, okay, is that it forgets who people are. And while it migrated all the permissions fine, didn't migrate the tasks and their assignment fine. All right, so once I did all of that, then it was time to move my database. So I backed it up. I just used the SQL backup, backed up the database. I took that file to the new environment, restored SQL to the SQL environment, and then you do an attach to attach the content database to the 2013 web application. Now there is one thing you have to remember to do. You will have to set permission on that database. If you're the IT pro and you're doing the database, then you're going to need to set the permission for the farm account to have DBO permissions on that database once it's restored to the new environment. Okay? Then you can go in and do your database attach. And it's just mount SP content database, then the content database name, the content database server, and then the web application that you want to attach it to in the new environment. And it will go through an increment that says 100%. I don't know how well you can see it back there, but it will be in the slide decks for you as well. So you'll see that 100%. Once you see that, it'll also show you the new ID. It'll show you the web application and the information about that once you've had success there, okay? I considered doing all of this piece live, but with the network issues I'm having, I was afraid. So you get lots of pretty pictures, okay? All right, so once you've got all that, then you can actually go to your site. And you can see I said successful almost, okay? So a couple of things here. Again, it can lose your permissions. Don't ask me why, but it sometimes will lose the permissions. I had it happen in it was the same one. For whatever reason, it did not like that particular test run of this. I don't know why, but it did not. So you can lose your permissions here. You'll see when you go to your site as the owner of the site, you'll see this big red thing up here. It still looks like 2010, right? Everything still looks the same. You'll see this big red bar up here that says, experience all that SharePoint 2013 has to offer. Start now or remind me later. Well, we wanted it to upgrade to 2013. We have our users all fired up about 2013 as they are, right? Right? Yes. Yes, everybody wants to go to 2013. So why do we still look the old way? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to migrate it. So if you click Start Now, it's going to pop up and it tells you prepare for takeoff. Buckle your seatbelts because you're in for a bumpy ride. Let me just tell you, okay? So then you have two things that you can do. You can learn more, so you can just learn a little bit more about it. You can take a demo of it, which means it will actually create a second place for it to go and build it all out, and then you can go over there and play with stuff. Or you can actually just upgrade your site. Now, I've done all of those. This particular slide deck and show is the actual upgrade. So we are going to upgrade the site collection. When you click it, you get the upgrade status. And it says it will refresh every minute. And then it will also tell you how good or how bad it's doing at that upgrade. So you'll get errors and warnings. I had 4 warnings. And that's because in my old site collection, I actually had a solution that I didn't put in 2013, mainly because they haven't given me the new copy of it. I had several Lightning Tools solutions in my old farm. So that's the warnings it's giving me. It says, hey, if you've got any of these in your site, you're not going to be able to use them because we don't know what this feature is. I don't have the new version. And I didn't have any in that site. If you were in my last session, we didn't use anything from Lightning Tools, so we're good. All right, and then you get this site settings, upgrade status, successful, we hope. If you don't get successful, it didn't work, and it's not going to be a pleasant thing to try to back out of. Keep that backup copy of that database always around, just in case, because you'll need it. I needed it several times. And then you can click what's new and then just see the site. So basically all we've done there, we've upgraded the database when we did the SP content database. So the database then got all the 2013 stuff, all the good parts, okay? Then it got the look. So we updated the look from the 2010 site to the 2013 site. Okay, so it updates all the looks. It also does a couple of other things in the background. But you can see that it looks very similar to our 2010 site. We still have our projects, our coming events on our main page. I didn't get the whole page, I'm sorry. Hopefully my thing is up and I can do that. Let's see how it's looking. Ooh, we might get to do a demo. All right, we'll let that one work while it's still working. So that's what we've done so far, is we've just upgraded the look and feel of the site. If you've had any of those permissions issues, this is where you want to go and check, see if your permissions are still there. You want to check and make sure that your tasks are still assigned to the right people, or if they're blank, you want to reassign them back to that person. That was definitely a fun thing to go through when it all disappeared on me, and I went, what? That's not cool. But it can happen, and you need to be aware of that. So when you go into your upgrade, whether you are the person doing it or not, you need to be ready. Let me see if my VM is happy now.
Sorry.
Yes?
You said, what happened? Did you lose all the users?
The users were still in there with permissions to the site. It had migrated that. They were still in the user list. They just, all the tasks assigned disappeared, just blank. So it lost all of the people. So I don't know why it did not map correctly or something, so just be aware of that. In other tests it was successful. It was one time. I did this 5 different times, one time, and it did it on both the migration to claims and then migration from 2010 to 2013. Both times it did it in both spots on one time. So just since I've had that experience, I want you to be aware that it can happen. And I'm supposed to be showing you a demo right now of the 2013 site. It is still trying to log in. My poor little VM is not giving me happy thoughts. So we may skip it and do all the demo at the end. See, we were supposed to look at it. It's pretty, isn't it? Right? Okay. One of the things you will experience now that we have moved from Classic to Claims is that the InfoPath solution will give you an error. Now this will happen in the 2010 environment as well when you migrate from Classic to Claims. The process to fix it is going to be the same thing. I'm just going to show you how to do it in 2010 or 2013 because that's the new environment that I have running claims in right now. Hopefully I'll get to show you that. So there's some updates that you have to do. So the data connection, especially for the web service, will have to be updated. So you'll have to go into your InfoPath form and change it because now it's trying to pass claims credentials to the web service. Well, the web service doesn't know what to do with that. It doesn't know how to handle that from InfoPath. It doesn't pass it the same way. It requires us to create an application ID in the secure store. Now this is the best way to do it. You could actually go into the data connection file because that's what you're going to have to create. Remember we talked about in the last session, if you wanted to go across site collections, you had to create that data connection file to that other site and put it in there. So this is the same thing. You're going to go into your data connections on your form. You're going to create a data connection file and put it in a data connection library. In that particular data connection, it's a text file. Basically, it's an XML file. There's a section for the credentials that can be passed. And it is commented out by default because we never did that before, but now we have to do it. So we will have to uncomment that out and update it so that it shows the application ID and the authentication type of NTLM that we would have to create in the secure store. Now that's the best way to do it. You could put in there the actual credentials of a person's login or a service account and the password. Yeah, who wants to do that in a connection file that anybody can go to and open up and read? Nobody? Yeah, I don't blame you. It's fine in a little dev environment like in my little VMs. That's fine, no problem, but I didn't do that. Much better to use the application ID from the secure store because then you're storing those credentials within SharePoint. It's going to encrypt them appropriately and people can't just go and get those credentials. It does require some changes to the InfoPath services settings, so you have to go into the settings and tell it that you can use data connection files with credentials. So you have to go and tell it that. And then there's some other updates to the form that you have to do to the other items. And I don't know why, but it always makes you go and reassociate with the different data connections that you have. So if you have a connection to a list, you have to go reassociate that connection to that list once you've moved it over. And then republish your form. Let me see if I've got it back now. Please be there, please be there. Nope. Anything that uses web services, you're going to have to do this for. Anything that uses regular task lists, you can just breeze through it. Next, 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 next. You're just reassociating it and then publishing. If you have, and this is one of the reasons that there's so much about InfoPath right now and the access forms, is because you need to carefully consider how you're using InfoPath in your environment. For those that weren't in here, how many of you that weren't in here were also in Dervish's session yesterday? Did anybody go to Dervish's session yesterday? Okay. So the enterprise form solutions moving forward is they're moving towards access forms. And InfoPath is still around, it's still kicking, but be considering of what you're doing with InfoPath because of that transition. Gradually, things are going to transition more and more to using the access form solutions for enterprise forms than InfoPath. Right now, it's still around. It's one of the few ways that you can still interact and customize a list form. So it is still available to you to use, and that's one of the reasons that I'm doing this, because you can see that if you've got it in 2010, you can upgrade it to 2013, and it will still work. You just have to tweak it a little bit, okay? I'm supposed to demo and show you the changes to InfoPath. We may end up showing you pictures because I'm not able to get into my machine yet. It's giving me fits. I knew it would. I was afraid of that. Glad I was prepared. In fact, let's just flip over and do some pictures here. Let me open up. Yes?
So did you create the web application in classic mode?
Yes, I created it in the second web application in classic mode and migrated the entire web application to claims. Mainly because the web application, everything was in already. I didn't want to adjust. I wanted one of each. So now anything I create in that second web application will automatically be claims. All right, let me pull out my screenshots here. Some pretty ones. So that's my upgrade. Oh, look, after you click, yes, we want to upgrade our site, you get this beautiful, are you sure? Are you sure you want to upgrade the look and feel of your site to 2013? Yes, we're sure, right? We do. We always want to go to 2013. And then there's your upgrade in progress. I got you a couple of shots of it so you can see. Look, it even gives you a log file that you can actually click on and go see what those errors and warnings are. There's your success. Not yet. There's your success. And we clicked, let's just see the new site. There's our site. I think I took a couple of pictures. Look, our tasks list is there, and it's got the assign to field. We were excited. I was so excited that it worked. I was afraid it wouldn't. Again, this is part of the main page view. You can still see we're on the home.aspx. We've got our projects, our issues, our tasks, our you saw the events on the first page, yes?
Sorry, did it also transfer your state of workflows? Because I can see some systems in progress.
This is actually just a list item status. I did not have workflows on this. So that's going to be a question. If you're interested in how upgrades go, I would definitely go to Chan and Ari's session tomorrow, because that's going to be one they'll answer. I haven't tested it with upgrades that are in progress.
They don't go through workflows.
They don't?
The ones in progress, they will not go through.
They won't?
So it's
Okay.
almost like the terminal workflows.
Yeah. That's good to know. Definitely good to know. Like if we were doing the workflow I talked about in my last session where it incremented a number so you could see a pie chart, that would definitely be something that would be good to know. Here's our reports library. You can still see that we have reports in there. So here's where I went through and did the upgrade of the data connection, okay? So you can see that we just go into our data connections in our form, and I selected Convert to Connection File. Now we had to create a data connection library, obviously. And I just called it really, really powerful name, Data Connections. We're real creative here, right? And we have to give it a file name, UDCX, and we made it relative to the site collection, because we're just going to use it right there within that site collection for this particular form. If you were doing forms that were deployed at the farm level, then you could do the centrally managed data connection as well. All right, so once you give it a name, it goes through, it converts it, and you can see that it says it's now a data connection file, and it's got a source. Now, I can't remember if I took pictures of all pieces of this or not. Yep, there it is. So it's now in our data connection library. But this still doesn't give you the entire thing. You still have to open that file and edit it. I don't remember if I took a picture of it. I did not. Okay, so we went into Secure Store. In Central Admin, if you don't have access, you'll have to work with your IT pro to do this piece. So in the Secure Store, you create a new target application, and we're just calling it InfoPath ID. It's real complicated, right? It's got to be a group type. So when the target application type, it has to be a group type so that more than one person can use those credentials. I didn't change anything else, and you have to give it an email for whatever reason. We're not changing anything. We just have a Windows username, Windows password. And then we get to edit the application administrators. Of course, in this case, I just used the farm account. And then who can actually use those credentials. If you want everybody in your domain to be able to open up those forms with that particular thing, then you're going to need to do something like domain users. It's the easiest way to do it. Just say everybody gets to use these. Okay?
Tell me.
Yes.
Is it, if you are planning to migrate, is it maybe not, are we able to do this in 2010?
Yes, you are able to do this in 2010.
Migrate is already going to be...
Yes. So you'll just have to make sure that the new Secure Store ID is the same as the one in 2010. And so, unless they're upgrading that particular database and everything too. If they're rebuilding and building new services, you just have to make sure they match. Okay? But yes, this is exactly how you would do it if you migrate just from Classic to Claims within 2010. Same process. All right, and then once you've got it in there, you have to go in and set the credentials. You enter a Windows username, password. In this particular case, I used the farm account just because that was the easiest one for me to use. But you could create a special service account that way, just in case anybody was doing any tracking, you'd have one that didn't have God rights within your farm. All right, then you have to go into your InfoPath services under General Settings, and there's the Authentication to Data Sources, where you can allow user templates to use authentication contained in data connection files. That is not checked by default. So even if you've done all those previous steps and you try to open it, it's going to give you an error. It's this one, I can't connect to web services error. It's that lovely 5566, I think, is the ID that you get, and you'll see it in all your event logs as well. So that's probably what you missed, because this is the easy step to miss. I missed it at least once in all my stuff. Is, oh yeah, I forgot to go back and change that. So don't forget to change the allow user form templates to use those data connection file authentication methods. All right, so here is the XML that's created in that data connection that we created. All right, and you can see it's commented out right here with the authentication right here. So you'd have to take the exclamation and the 2 dashes and then the 2 dashes at the other end off so that it will pass those credentials, otherwise it's going to ignore it. And then you put in your app ID, and you use the app ID of InfoPath ID, because that's what I used, because you're all going to use that, right? It's so complex. And then your credential type is NTLM. If you're using NTLM, that's just what you'd use. It's pretty easy. Then you save that and upload it back over the form that you've already created, because you can't open this one directly from it. You have to download it and then upload it because it's a UDCX file and it doesn't know how to act with that. So you would upload it, overwrite the old version, and then you would use this form. All right, let's see. So you can see there I put in the information. And I did remember to take these out before I saved it. I don't know if I have a picture of that or not, though. Not sure why that's in there. Okay, that's as far as I got. So let's see if my VM is liking me yet or not. And I can show you some other stuff. I'm hoping it's there. Let me check it really quick. Entertain yourselves for a moment. I see what it's doing. 172.16.193.57. Now I should like it. Almost there. Almost there. I'm just testing it before I throw it over there. Oh. Let me fire up all my pages. It's warming up, I promise. I'm just glad I have one now. I'll start moving it over to you guys, though. Oh, well, I don't need it over there, but let's put it at the top, make it big. There we go. Recent. Actually. All right. So there's that. Let's see if my site's up. Still working on it. Ah. All right, so you can see, we kind of showed you some pictures, but you still have all of your data there. You still have stuff assigned to people. I'm logged in this particular view as the system account. The one thing I don't like about this is that I can't do in private browsing and show you somebody else's, so I'm going to have to remote desktop to it really quick. So let me get that information really quick. $172.16.93.58. And connect. Don't ask me again. Connect. And this time I'll actually log in as a different user. If you were in here in the last session, who did I pick on the most? Who? Yes. Guess who I'm picking on again?
Never do any work.
Alrighty. And this one is, of course, a different size, so we'll try to make it work too. So this is when I'm logged in with Kathy's credentials, so that you can see what it looks like for an end user. And unfortunately, it's not going to be the best experience. Let's do this. Let's see, screen resolution. See what I can get to here. Oh, it's not going to let me change it. Gotta love it, right? Internet Explorer, we'll go ahead and go to that site. Ask me later. You can tell she hasn't done much work. She hasn't even configured her internet, right? I get to pick on her because she saves me from so many things, especially from bad design. All right, so now I'm logged in as Kathy. And I actually have, if I can get all the way over there, I actually have tasks assigned to me. Yay, it still works. Remember that one time when I had no usernames? So all that was blank, so that was a lot of fun. But this one actually worked. So you can see that as well. One thing that I thought was really cool that I wasn't sure if it would upgrade or not, and I'm back in as the admin here, is if I go to my manager console, and I'm sorry because it was still trying to boot, it's still warming up, so it's going to take a couple seconds for everything to load, was the chart web part still worked. So it's still there, it still shows stuff. If I add new reports, it will add that data in, so that was kind of cool that it actually did still work and upgrade. All right. So we're going to go to our reports up here. Actually, I'm not going to do it as the farm account. I'm going to do it as the other account here. Give me a second. There we go. I hate scroll bars. So much fun. Oh, nope, I gotta go back this way. And all the way up. And then here. You know what? Let's do this. There we go. We'll just make that page. All right, so now I'm gonna go to my reports. And if I go to fill out a new report, because I have not changed the form yet, let's see what happens. Oh, we got a warning. Something's not right. Anybody ever seen this before and gone, ugh? And it's so descriptive. And it just tells you, hey, we can't connect to a web service. An entry has been added, and of course I told you it was 5566, right? There's your log ID. It does give you a correlation ID as well, okay? So you can go in and fix that. And then you'll see that it also gives us the other ones. Hey, it can't connect to all those lists. Remember I said you had to just go through and next. I hadn't done that yet to this form either. No, only the one web service. The rest are SharePoint lists. It says I can't connect to this list either. Yeah, and that's the ones that are very easy to fix. It's the one that's the web service that you have to go through all of those steps. And I'll show you, because I've actually got, that's why I opened both copies of the form. If you click OK, the form still opens. It just doesn't show you anything. You have no tasks. You have no name. You don't know who you are. You can't show any of the drop-down data because it's not connecting to it. Exactly. So it's going to take a lot of planning when you do your upgrade. So it's not just attach that database, is it? It's no longer just attach the database. If you've done anything like this, you're going to have some work on the other end. So if you, as the power user, have created the forms and deployed them, when they come to you and say, hey, we're upgrading your site, be prepared. So this is what you're being prepared for. All right? So let me go back really quick to my other connection here. And I'll show you the form in the upgraded state and what we had to do to make it work. Nope, not that one. Go to that one. There we go. So there's my form. So right now it's in this state. You can still see that my employee info is the same. It's set to that secondary connection. My data connections, I haven't upgraded this one. It's not showing the data connection file, all right? So that's the way it came across. And I have upgraded it. And I did a lot of this pre-work because it would be easier to do it that way. Now the name, if you look at it, is blank, okay? There's a reason for that. When we set our data connection up to go to that secondary connection, one of the things you have to change is you have to tell it not to load all the data immediately. Because what it's going to do is it's going to pass the credentials that are in that application ID to the service. So every time it's just going to pull that same user. It's going to pull that same user's user profile stuff because that's the default behavior of InfoPath with that. It's going to use the logged in user. Well, it's passing those credentials, so that's the data it's going to get back is its own data. So we have to then tell it how to get that data. So we don't want it to automatically populate. We want it to query the data we want it to pass, right? So we then take that one, and it's a checkbox. If you go into modify, I'm not going to change anything. It's going to make it download it again. It's going to ask me for credentials. I'm real creative on those credentials too. Okay, next. We're not storing a copy. We never want to store a copy, right? Because then our form is monstrous in size. And then we just uncheck this automatically retrieve data. So it's pretty simple. Once you've created that data connection, you uncheck that, and then finish, and there it is. So now it's just a data connection that's sitting there waiting for us to tell it when to do something. So now we have to tell it how to do that. Well, in the last one, we had our week ending doing all the rules. We had it setting the query name and all of that, because it would do it automatically as soon as the form opened because that field was filled. Now we don't want it to do that anymore, because then it's going to set that stuff based on the credentials that are being passed immediately, and we don't want it to do that. We have to do something else. So I've come in here and I've done some queries, and I said, okay, I need to query the username. And this is all great, but that username, do you know what it looks like when it comes back? Does anybody know what a claims username looks like? It's ugly. It's got like pound signs and asterisks and dollar signs. It's all this weird stuff, and then it's got a pipe, and then it's got your domain name / username, right? Well, all we want is that domain name / username. So I said, oh, I actually put the form on the field, published it, and then you can see what it looks like, and you go, ugh, I don't like that. So we have it populate that by default. So if you look at this, it says the default value is username. So, well, we can't query by that because it doesn't know that username in the user profile service. So we have to pull up a query name. Now I use substring after. That's a pretty easy one to use. Anybody ever worked with substring after? Okay. So it's a built-in function. It's very simple out of the box. It basically reads the text, and it's got two fields that you fill in after it. The first one is the actual field you want it to look at. So that would be our username. The second field is, hey, I want to see all the data after this particular character. So we are going to use the pipe character, because after the pipe character, it actually puts our domain / username. Okay, and that's what we need to query our data source with. So once we have that populated, now we can tell our data connection to do some stuff. So now we can set a field's value. So we're going to set that account name in the query section of our secondary data source. You get two sections, remember, when it's a secondary data source. You get your query section and then your data. Okay, so we're going to set the query to be the account name. Okay, and that's the domain name / username. Then you're going to query that data connection. You're going to say, hey, go get this information. Query it now. And it's going to pull it all back. So once we've queried it, the next thing we want to do is set our values, where we get our name up here and our title. Now we can use that information to do stuff with, right? Once we've set that, then once we come up to name, we can now set our values on our query to the data connection here that fills out our tasks, if you were in the last session, that shows us the tasks that we completed, because we're setting the display name as the assigned to field, and then we're going to set the status as completed, and then we're going to query it and pull this in. Now it happens pretty quick once you publish the form, so it looks like it's on load, but it's really not on load. It's actually doing all of that in the background. So it does take a little bit of a performance hit. If you are watching it and timing it and you're looking at forms, you don't want to do this too often as the form loads. Usually what you want to do when you're querying data sources is use a button or something that the user will push, or information that will be filled in, and have it query it then. For this particular one, we're doing it as it loads, but not really on load, so that you can see how it will work. All right, so I've done this. I've got my hidden fields. I always have a section that says hidden fields. It's just the easiest way to manage your forms, especially if you want sections to show or not show on specific values, because those fields won't ever be in your form for people to see. It's just ones that you will use throughout your data. All right, so I'm going to publish this. We're going to cross our fingers and pray that it works to our server. And it's telling me I have to save it. That's fine. I don't care where you want to save it. Desktop. Evolution. We're going to save it back to itself. Yes, we want to overwrite it. Okay. Now it's asking me where to publish it. I'm going to publish it to the same library, because I'm just updating all the data connections. And of course, we're saying it's a form library. We're updating the template. It knows that it's already been published there before. It's just saying, hey, are you sure you want to do this? What fields? Next, next, publish. Cross your fingers, pray that it works. Says it works. Now let's go see how it really did. I'm going to refresh the page just because I always like to do that to be safe. And now I'm logged in as Kathy, and I'm going to try to submit a new status report in our new environment. And you can see it takes a couple seconds longer. It's going and getting all that data that I've told it to go and get. And it works. So Kathy's done more work than she did last week. So she did 2 tasks this time. So we can see that it pulled in her title, it pulled in her name, it went and got her completed tasks, only the ones that were completed this week. For those of you that weren't in the first session, the way we did that was we actually set conditional formatting on that entire table that said if the completed date or the last modified date was not within the week, then we didn't want to see it, okay? So it's only going to show tasks completed during those 2 dates up there, if it wasn't greater than or less than kind of thing. Let's see how many tasks we can work on. Oh, look, we have lots of tasks that we can work on. We can help other people with tasks. Let's see. Kathy did. You can see I have this field down here because I wanted to compare the assigned to field with the name so that I could make sure it would match. That's always an easy way to do it. Drag and drop another field on there. You can always remove it later. But if you want to compare values from those secondary data sources, drag them onto your form. See what they look like. So let's see. This task took you 6 hours. This task took you 8 hours. You helped me with something for 2 hours. I'm pretty needy. You're going to help me with something else for 2 hours. And then let's see, you also going to help Jay. Let's help Jay with something for 2 hours. You've been helpful this week. See, she's doing work this time. She's happy. And let's see, she's worked on 2 projects. And she's done whatever she wanted to do on those. I don't know what branders do, so I'm just typing in random junk. And she did 5 hours on that one and 8 hours on that one. And let's see, she did 5 hours of admin work. And she did a webinar. Let's say she took a webinar on responsive design. Why not? And that gives her 40 hours and she can submit it. And now she has a report. And you can see that it is in the library. It's telling us she worked a full 40 hours. I could actually go in and do conditional formatting on these and say if it's not full 40 hours, show it red in my view so that I can see what's going on. I can come back. Let me go back to my home page. I can go to my manager console. My chart part still works. Shows me that she's done 40 hours this week. So everything still works in 2013. And I've got 10 minutes, so I'm going to hurry really fast through this last couple of slides. Let me flip back to my PowerPoint presentation here and minimize this stuff. If I can figure out where my mouse is, I always lose it. Minimize, minimize. All right. I'm just glad I got to show you all some demos. Oh, that was good. All right, so what's new about it in 2013? So there's some changes to the team site. So if you wanted to create all this in 2013, you still could do it. You could still create the InfoPath form using InfoPath 2013. That's what was shown. Use the same methods. It's going to be claimed, so you're going to have to use that data connection file. So if you want to use that and connect to that web service, you're going to have to work with your admins to make sure that the InfoPath form services are configured the same. The team site doesn't have as many default created apps. Does anybody notice that? That you don't have that discussion board that nobody ever uses created when you create a team site? It actually doesn't even have a tasks list or a calendar list created by default. I mean, there's like nothing there. You have that wonderful let's get started. And on there is the thing that says, hey, are you working on a deadline? Are you working on a project? Are you working with a team? And if you click that and say, yeah, I'm working with a team, it automatically creates you a tasks list and a calendar. But the cool thing about that tasks list is now you have what's called a timeline. So it kind of gives you this chart and it puts tags on the chart for all those tasks so you can see when things are coming due. Kind of cool. So that can be part of your dashboard look and part of your beginning as well. There's some social things. So one of the things we talked about that managers do is build relationships. We also want our team to build relationships. So the ability to have a news feed and to populate your news feed within your team site is probably pretty good for that. It helps you to be able to communicate. As a manager, you can look at that and see how people are communicating. If somebody's posting a question and people are responding to it, then you can see who on your team is doing that and helping people out. You can also follow a site. So has anybody played with the social features much? I know there's a lot of social sessions. So if you want to learn about social, there's going to be a social session. Just go find it and sit in it. They'll talk to you about following. That's where you can get updates, and it'll show in your news feed on your My Site things that are changing on your site, which is kind of cool, especially if you're a manager. Then you can see what everybody's doing within your site. You don't have to necessarily go to that site, which is another cool thing. You have the ability to create communities. Has anybody played with communities? It's another very similar thing. You can create a community that's, it's almost like a forum where you can have people that are working together and on the same type of topics, and they can help each other out. You can also, in that, because when it's a community, you can also do like rating systems. So this person has a lot of good answers. This person doesn't have a lot of good answers. You may not want to trust what they say, right? So then we can rate other users. You have the content by search web part. Now this is where things get really cool. So instead of having to do filters and views and things all on your list, or using the content by query web part to only be able to see what's in your site, if you're a part of a site that's across multiple teams that has different site collections, using the content by search web part, you can display all your tasks from every team in one place. So that's pretty cool. Especially if you're a manager, you could actually do a content by search and filter based on like your team name or your department name and roll everything up into one location and see how those tasks are going for you. And then of course there's the ability now to do the access services and forms. I am not by any means an expert in that anymore. I used to do access way back when. I used to be afraid to admit that because access developed a bad reputation, right? But it's coming back. So if you're interested in how you can use access forms, definitely go check out Dervish's session tomorrow. It'll be at 11:30, I think, in the pick and mix room. So it's right across. I think that's St. James or something like that. And he'll show you some cool ways. You could probably implement solutions similar to this with access forms as well. Any questions? This is your time. You've got 5 more minutes of me.